残酷な天使のように少年よ神話になれ。
Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of the Drop Culture Podcast. This special edition, we're going to be talking about what we have been kind of hinting at. It's a Evangelion podcast.
This is a little preview episode.
This is our preview episode of what Evangelion is. I personally have been watching Evangelion for the past 20-something years, since probably 1998. And on and off, and have collected some of the first editions of it. I didn't have anything on VHS, but I've always been into anime. That's one thing. And I know you have too, Dan.
I have. And actually, I like a lot of old school anime.
Yes.
Not usually into like the cutesy stuff. It's not really my gig.
Right.
And I will say this, that I have been watching Evangelion for, Evangelion? Evangelion. Sorry.
That's how I pronounce it.
That's how long I've been watching. I don't know how to say it. I've been watching it for about 3 days.
Okay.
And I'm excited because this is something I've never seen.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about it. So you've got obviously a lot of background with it. I have zero. And I think that'll make for a great dynamic for the show.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to do this version of our podcast for us was just because of my love for the actual series, but then also because I think there are a lot of fans out there that really love the show, love everything about it. A lot of people call it the greatest anime ever.
We actually had a few folks reach out after you had mentioned it on a podcast, and we thought, well, if there's enough people that want to talk about it, why would we not
We should
talk about it some more.
Yeah, we should do our own. And having me, like you said, with my background, and you just seeing it for the first time, it's going to have that good dynamic for it to kind of see the evolution of the way that the show is going to go for you, compared to me seeing it again, because it has hit Netflix. I've been looking forward to it hit Netflix for a long time. I do have all my stuff ripped onto my computer, so I have one of the very first Perfect collections. The very first time I really watched it, now just to kind of get into the background of the anime part of it, I've been watching anime since I was a little kid. I mean, as far as back as like Voltron, you know what I mean?
Of course.
I remember watching Voltron at like 6 o'clock in the morning in Paris, Texas.
Yeah,
and being like, "Wow, that's
you
pretty
got up
cool."
early to watch Voltron when we were kids.
Fuck
that's
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and it was crazy to that was there, and all of those older animes were there, and then whenever video was really kind of popping off too, that's when we had the video section of anime. And if you were lucky enough to have a video section of anime at your video store, that was just cool as hell.
I just remember when I was younger that there would be anime that popped in, like it would just be a random one.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we didn't have a section necessarily. It was like, oh, this is animated. What is this?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Right.
I was young.
Our section was one gondola wide. If you've ever been to a video store, you know how big a gondola is, you know. And it was one gondola wide, and we had The Legend of the Overfiend, which was a Penthouse set.
Okay.
And it was like 10 volumes, and it was nothing but like really bad, over-the-top sex and gore and death. And I remember that one being very prevalent. And we could rent it because you at 10, 11 years old, whenever that one was out, you could just bring it to the counter and nobody knew what the fuck it was. In the same way with Ninja Scroll, Akira.
Yeah.
That was a seminal movie for everybody. I think that if you like anime any bit, you'll really, really love that one.
Well, that was released too,
Yeah, that was a huge one.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Pioneer was was one of their American distributors for it, wasn't it? So they had some of the definitive collection of that one.
For me, I think the very first animated or anime movie that I bought, not animated, but anime movie that I bought on VHS was MD Geist.
Nice.
Maybe that might have not been the first one because I think I had Vampire Hunter D before that.
Yep.
I don't remember years for things that came out.
Right.
I just remember always kind of having them around. MD Geist is excellent. If you have never seen it, it's short. So one time, this is it, and they may have made a newer one. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, I don't follow it enough.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed that one because it was definitely a flip-flop kind of an ending where you're like, oh,
Yeah.
Okay, this is different,
Yeah. Well, the first time that I saw this show, I actually did see it on a video cassette recorded. The entire 8-hour tape
Wow.
was actually put together by somebody, and this
Okay.
is a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down of a hand-me-down.
That was pretty common in our time, though.
Yeah.
That people would make. Hey, I've got like all these on.
Yeah, can I
tape.
dub this from you real quick?
Yep.
And like somebody would put the time into it, and
Yeah.
this copy was
Something they were passionate about.
right, and the copy was so bad that it was you couldn't hear some of the vocals that were in it. You couldn't hear some of the dialogue. You couldn't hear anything. I remember, and I can still in my head, the first time that I watched the whole series all the way through, just being like, wow, this is something that's pretty special, because it was airing on national television, back in the day.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
It was aired on TV Tokyo. October 4th, 1995 was the first episode, and it ended in March 1996. On March 27th, and it was such a big, broad scope of a television show. The original series is kind of what spawned a whole bunch of other stuff after that.
So, and let me ask for clarification, if you don't mind. What we're watching now, the Neon Genesis, is that the original?
We're watching on Netflix. It's the original series, okay, but it's a redub. So
you mean as far as the voices?
The voices are all.
So I know
new.
that you had mentioned in the past on an episode that bothers you because you had these voices in your head for 20, 30
all of the
20
major
years,
characters. Yeah,
for me, that won't be a problem. I was just wanting to make sure that it was the original source material.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if we're going to talk about anything after that, I'd like to at least get the base.
Yes, what we're going to dive into episode by episode is the original television series. Seeing it all those years ago and as soon as I was able to get the DVDs for it, that was the first thing that I had. I remember ordering it from Amazon back in, I think the first time I had it was 2001, maybe, whenever the first real collection came out instead of the individuals. And then I did the same thing. It's dubbable. So I had my VHS, and I made my friend that originally, he was my roommate, that actually had a copy of the original one. We did a whole brand new one. We sat the whole time, recorded all the episodes together, one intro, one outro, and that was it. We paused it at the right time, paused the VHS, and then skipped, and then just we did a masterful job of it. He probably still has that VHS too.
So I will say, I've watched a couple episodes where I know we're not there yet. I would like to see it with the intro and outro once.
Yes, yeah.
Because that with a lot of animated stuff, it's not just this. I'm like, oh, okay. We're going to hear this song again and, see some images, and that'll be cool.
The intro song is very, very powerful. But the outro song, they did Fly Me to the Moon.
Right.
Over and over and over again in different ways throughout the original series. And now on the Netflix, they don't have that. They just have the really quiet kind of an outro song for it, which is kind of a letdown to a lot of us fans too, because for one, they changed the voices. For two, they don't have Fly Me to the Moon and all the different iterations.
They've released the
soundtracks for these things.
Really?
With the actual different versions of everything. And certain people that were voices on the show were asked to sing the song, So one of the characters, I think the director asked her to sing it was like she was being strangled or something crazy like that.
Really?
Right? Yeah. There's, and I'm going to get some of these facts wrong too. And so anybody listening, of course, if you have something that I miss or something that you want us to mention, because we'll do a wrap up before we do the next episode at the beginning of every new episode,
right,
of all of our feedback and things like that we get from this. But we really, My goal with this whole podcast is to really kind of deep dive into it from a fan's perspective and then a non-fan's perspective, but somebody that enjoys watching anime.
Yeah, just something. And I'm not, again, so I want, what I want to get out of this, and again, I think it's great because you have such a background in it. You've seen all of the Evangelion stuff a bazillion times, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Because then you're my basis, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I am not like Johnny Anime.
Yeah, me neither.
You
Me
know,
neither.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a handful of anime that I like. And if you are an anime fan, just kind of give you my background. I think I mentioned MD Geist, of course, Vampire Hunter D, Akira,
Mhm.
Wolf's Rain I liked a lot, Samurai Champloo.
Shampoo. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
That was actually a cartoon. It was on Cartoon Network
Oh, that's
at
cool.
one time, I believe. But that's kind of where I'm at in that world. Like, of course, I watched Voltron when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know if that counts.
We saw the major ones. And I haven't, like, I'm just like you. I have a handful.
And most of those were like from someone who was very passionate about, hey, you really need to check this out.
Right.
And I'd be like, awesome. And, back in the day, they'd just make you some DVDs and there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
Or make you a VHS.
Yeah.
Depending on when it was. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. And I think that's kind of fun because I'm not a person that's overly into anime.
Correct.
So this will be for some of our other fans that don't listen to us because of this kind of content, maybe a bridge into something like that as well.
Yeah.
So,
and hopefully by the time we get through this series, we'll get into the rebuilds because they've done that. They've done all different. They've had movies, all different kinds of stuff, and maybe we'll get into another anime too.
Yeah.
Maybe kind of use this as another platform for us to kind of get our voices out there a little bit more. Let's just kind of start off with the actual title, Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's in Japanese. It means the gospel of the new century. I think that's what I read. It might not be correct, but I am going to definitely say that from one of my sources, that's basically what it implies there. So it was directed by Hideki Anno. And again, it was broadcast on TV Tokyo, all the way back in 1995. I don't know what the time slot was or anything like that, but I can imagine that it was in a pretty good time slot.
Oh yeah, it's huge over there.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
It was a very, very anticipated television show for the time too. Now I'm going to break down the synopsis as easy as possible. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of not necessarily paraphrasing, but definitely. Evangelion is set 15 years after a worldwide cataclysm. And it is basically set in a futuristic fortified city of Tokyo 3. So, of course, the big major disaster wiped out a whole bunch of people in the earth, and then you're here. So they don't really get into the backstory.
Started from the bottom, now they're here.
Correct. They don't really get into the backstory too much at the very beginning because they're introducing these characters for it. The main protagonist of the whole show is Shinji Ikari. He's a teenager, and he's recruited by his father to pilot a giant biomachine mecha called an Evangelion. Okay, so you get a glimpse of it a little bit, in this first, and we'll break that down in the first episode. He's called into combat these alien beings, and they're called angels. Now they
don't look like angels.
Correct, not what you would normally see.
Right.
So the series really it goes into it's growing up. It goes into love, hate. Everything that there's a piece of this that everybody can really grab onto and really identify with at some point throughout this whole movie or TV show, because you can fit a lot of your life into some of these scenarios. There's a lot of things that you can see in yourself in these, I think. But then there's characters that you can identify with in them too. Not just the main character, but each one of the characters, you might be able to grab on and be like, oh, okay, I like this. I like this scenario. I like the way this is going with this. Now, what they're basically trying to do is stop these angels from causing another cataclysm. That's what the impression is about. You don't want them to cause another major impact.
No, then you're going to have Tokyo 4.
Correct. With one person in it.
Which is still better than Tokyo Drift.
Correct. And you find out so many different things throughout this, and that's how we're going to kind of break it down. It's going episode by episode. We're going to introduce the characters whenever they pop up, a little bit of the organizations that's in them, a lot of different things with it. And we'll kind of keep it a little bit linear, and then again, with any feedback that we get, of course, we'll do the breakdown like they do in the show. They do give you a little breakdown of what happened before on certain shows, Overall, really the goal of this is to kind of maybe give that different perspective, that
Absolutely.
perspective